Welcome to Old Guy Gaming Network, and today we're going to be reviewing Sam Scene 3D New York City Times for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I got mine through Orbx Central. It is, we're going to compare side by side the default New York City flight sim scenery with the Sam Scene 3D New York. Now the Sam Scene scenery is on the left. The default Microsoft Flight Simulator in-game scenery is on the right. Now the first thing I'll say is that while the Sam Scene 3D New York scenery makes a huge difference, it comes at a pretty severe penalty FPS wise. I normally run about 40 frames a second through New York City, whereas with the Sam Scene 3D scenery, I lose at least 10 frames a second, sometimes even more. Now, right away, we're coming up on Freedom Tower. You can see that the default photogrammetry, it looks okay from a distance, but as you get close, the closer you get, the worse it looks. They make major improvements to not only Freedom Tower, but the buildings around it. Whereas, obviously the photogrammetry scenery, you could see reflections that are, stuck, in the glass that never change. Your perspective doesn't change. So, major difference there. Big improvement. Now we're going to fly down toward Central Park. Where some of the other improvements can be seen. Now, New York City has a bunch of super skinny, mega tall structures. They call it Billionaires Row right there. None of these buildings are in the default Microsoft Flight Simulator scenery. Although one of them can be seen under construction. Now, when we're flying toward there, you can see where the Sam Scene 3D scenery, it also just appears much more dense. There are many different custom objects that were created for this package. Now, I got to give them credit too. The buildings that they did create, they did manage to texture them just right, where they generally don't stand out like a sore thumb. And so they look like they should be there. I've seen some scenery add-on packages where it was just rushed and done poorly, and the custom buildings just, like I said, you could just pick them out in seconds. Now, I tried my best to line these up as close as I could, but it was a little harder than I thought, or than I anticipated. Now, on the Microsoft Flight Sim side, you see right there, I'm getting 36 frames per second. Normally, I would get higher, but for this particular video, I was actually running my second monitor and running the video clip of the Sam Scene scenery, so I could try to fly and try to keep it as close as possible. So I probably lost 5-6 frames per second doing it that way. Now this super tall skinny that we're getting ready to fly over, right slightly to the right on the narrators right there, you can see that building under construction. In the default Microsoft Flight Simulator, there it is right there. Now we're just going to fly down the island. We're going to go down toward Yankee Stadium, loop around, and come back up the river. So we can take a look at the bridges. The bridges are another area where they made some big improvement in some bridges. Not all of them, but before this goes too long and I forget, would I recommend this scenery? Absolutely. I think that the things that they added really make VFR flying around New York City a much better experience. Do I wish they could have done a little more? Of course. As we get down here toward the Bronx and we come back up, none of those bridges, none of the smaller bridges were touched. Some of them still have like trees on them and all that kind of thing. I would have loved them to have touched that up a little bit. But, I think the old adage goes, it doesn't matter, how much they do. People are always going to want more. Now, I did get this through the Orbx Central store. I kind of do like buying stuff that way because, Orbx will, the little add-on app that it has will manage your add-ons. We're going to fly down and loop around Yankee Stadium. I think if I ever do any of these side-by-side comparison videos like that, I'm going to pick a faster plane to fly the second leg. So that way, as I'm watching the video, as I'm lagging behind, I can quickly pick up speed and catch up. Now, I did make this using OpenShot, which is a free open source video editing software tool. Instead of just cropping half the video from either side like I've done in my previous videos, I actually reduced the scale of the video. So I actually include the full screen grab, which I thought was kind of neat. Just trying to get better, make better content. So yeah, here's the bridge I'm talking about. I wish they would have gone in there and just cleared out the trees. Yeah, another bridge with a bunch of trees. As we're coming back up the river, there will be some buildings in the Orbx scenery that you don't see. So yeah, it's not just downtown Manhattan where they made changes. Now, one of the biggest changes is this bridge coming up. In the default Microsoft scenery, it's just photogrammetry, and it's just one giant solid mass. The cars drive over top of the bridge like they don't even touch the bridge. Yeah, it's it's a clown show. The Orbx scenery, not only did they fix the bridge, they added the cable cars that go across the river. And if you look real closely, you can see them. There you go. You can see the cable cars right there. I think that's a fascinating amount of detail. Compared to how awful that bridge looks in the default look. There you can see the cars. You know, it's like Back to the Future. Hey, they got flying cars apparently. Yeah, that's a clown show, man. There's that weird looking building. It's funny, maneuver the camera. You know, as you're maneuvering the camera, trying to catch things, sometimes you nearly lose control of the aircraft and crash it. Now we're coming up on some of the other major bridges. And, you know, once again, the Orbx scenery, you know, the bridges have a just much finer detail and are overall much more pleasing to look at than their Microsoft Flight Simulator default. Bridges. And once again, yeah, they fixed the cars, so yeah, their cars aren't riding up the So, like I said, lastly, I will say, is it worth the money? I think it was $24 when I got it. Absolutely. If you like flying around New York City, this is definitely a must-have. Now, with the caveat, you better have a decent performing rig to run this scenery. It is very taxing. Like I said, if you look at the frame rate count there, I'm getting 24, 23, sometimes 20 frames a second. Now, granted, this is on ultra, but if you're going to get it, you're going to need to you may need to back down your settings some. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments below, like and subscribe, and until next time, have a wonderful evening.